Hello everyone and welcome back to the A+ Tutor. Today we're doing the second half of the SAT math test and this is the calculator allowed portion. So we have 55 minutes to answer 38 questions using our calculator. Not all questions will require the calculator. Some of them you'll be able to solve quickly, but that calculator will come in handy when we need some exact values. So we do get this reference sheet, which gives us some formulas and some just basic information, and then the rest is our knowledge that we'll need to be able to complete these problems. So let's jump right in. We've got 38 practice questions coming up. So here's our first problem. John runs at different speeds as part of his training program. The graph shows his target heart rate at different times during his workout. On which interval is the target heart rate strictly increasing, then strictly decreasing? So we're looking for an increase, which means we're going up, and then a decrease, which means we're going down. So we want to figure out where we're going up and then right away when we're going down. So let's mark all the places we're going up. We're going up here, we're going up here, and those are all of our increases, and we're going up here. So we're reading this graph from left to right and seeing when we are increasing. Now for all of our decreases, we're decreasing over here, decreasing here, and then decreasing here. So now we want to see where we have an increase, our purple line, and immediately after we have our red line for our decrease. So it looks like the only place we have that is right here in the middle of our graph, which starts us at 40 minutes and ends at 16 minutes. So our answer here would be letter choice B, between 40 and 60 minutes. The table above shows the distribution of age and gender for 25 people who entered a contest. If the contest winner will be selected at random, what is the probability that the winner will be either a female under age 40 or a male age 40 or older? So we've got two groups of people that we need to use, and then we need to take that probability. So our probability is equal to the number possible over the total available. So let's look at our number possible. We have our female under age 40. So under age 40 is this column here. And then for female, we have this row. So we've got 8. So female under age 40 is going to be 8 total options. And then we have our male age 40 or older. So 40 or older is this column over here. And male is up top. So age 40 or older is 2. So our total is going to be our 8 plus 2, which is 10. So that's our total possible, and then our total number is 25 people who entered this contest. So our probability is going to be equal to 10 over 25. And which one of our answer choices look like that? It is B, which means our answer is letter choice B. The table above shows some values of the linear function f. Which of the following defines f? So if it's a linear function, that means it's a line, and lines have a slope and a certain set of points that we can see here. So we want to figure out which one of these equations represents f. So there are a couple different ways that we can solve this. One way would be to plug each n value in to our different options and see if that gives you the f of n displayed below. The other way is to graph it and to find the equation of the line. Since we are timed, you'll want to use the way that is fastest for you, but I'll show you both ways and then you can make sure that you get your answer right. So let's start with plugging values in. So when we plug values in, we'll start with our 1. F of 1 should be equal to negative 2. So if we start with A, we'll get 1 minus 3, which equals negative 2. So that's right. And we always want to do another one just to make sure that these continue to be right. So then we have F of 2 is 2 minus 3, which is equal to negative 1. And this is 1, so that is not true, which means A is not our answer. Let's look at our next answer choice. F of 1 is going to be equal to 2 times 1 minus 4, which is negative 2, so we know that that's right. And then F of 2 is going to be 2 times 2 minus 4, which is equal to 0, and that's not true, so B is not our answer. F of 1 for letter choice C is going to be 3 times 1 minus 5, which is negative 2. And you see, each of our first ones are equal to negative 2, which is why if we would have just started at A, done that, picked A for our answer choice, we would have gotten it wrong because we don't continue to check. So you always want to make sure that this is going to be true throughout the board, because you can have a line that goes like this, that goes like this, and they all intersect at the same point, which is that first point, but the line we're looking for is that black line on our graph. So you always want to make sure that you are confirming that's your answer, even if you're going this route. So f of 1 works. Let's try f of 2 equals 3 times 2 minus 5, which would be equal to positive 1. So we know that this one probably works. So let's hold on to that. And let's check out letter choice D. F of 1 would be equal to 4 times 1 minus 6, which is negative 2. So that's true. F of 2 is 4 times 2 minus 6, which would be positive 2, and that's not true. So we know that letter choice C is our answer. So now let's look at it if we were to solve this using a graph, or really using our slope-intercept form of our function. So we know that our slope is rise over run, or the change in y over the change in x. So we can find the slope of our function because we have 2 points. These are x values on top and our y values on the bottom. So our slope is going to be 1 minus negative 2 over 2 minus 1. We get this because this is x1, x2, y1, y2. This is going to be 1 plus 2 over 1, which is 3 over 1, or just 3. So even just from finding our slope, we know that this slope does not work in letter choice A, letter choice B, or letter choice D. But again, we always want to get confirmation. So then to find the equation for our line, we know slope-intercept form is y equals mx plus b. We have a slope, we pick a point. So this becomes negative 2 equals 3 times 1 plus b. And we get negative 2 and 1 from one of our points, one of our x and y's. So negative 2 equals 3 plus b, which means b is equal to negative 5. And that means our function y equals 3x minus 5, and that's exactly what we see in letter choice C. So there's a few different ways that you can solve this. You always want to pick the way that is going to be easiest for you so that you can solve this quickly. Just make sure you double check your work. Don't go choosing the first answer because then you might get it wrong. Which of the following graphs best shows a strong negative association between D and T? So negative means as we're moving from right to left in our graph, we are moving in a negative direction, which means we're moving down. We want to see which graphs are moving down. So looking at A, B, C, and D, A is moving down, right? So we don't want to count that out. Even though it's very spread, it's moving in a downward direction. B is very flat, so this is definitely not our answer. C from left to right is moving up, which means it's moving in a positive direction, so it's not C. And then D is also moving down. So now the question is, how do we distinguish between A and D to know which one has a strong negative association? That word strong is going to tell us. Where do we see everything in our association between T and D moving down? That's going to be D, because everything is moving in that downward direction, where letter choice A has more of that scatter feel, which means our answer for this one is going to be letter choice D. Which of the following is the sum of the two polynomials shown above? So all we need to do is take these polynomials and add them. So let's line them up. 3x squared minus 5x plus 2 and 5x squared minus 2x minus 6. So we'll add down. Positive 2 plus negative 6 is going to be negative 4. We all have negative 4 in our answer choices. Negative 5 plus negative 2x is going to be negative 7x. So right from there, we can start to eliminate some of our answer choices. We have a positive 7x in B and a positive 7x in D. And then last, we have 3x squared plus 5x squared is going to be 8x squared. So our polynomial is 8x squared minus 7x minus 4. Now, if we look at A and C, and if we look too quickly, we might think that C is our answer choice because A and C do look almost exactly the same. But the biggest difference between A and C is we see in A, which is our answer, our variables stay the same power, and C, they double. We're not multiplying. So when we add variables, we keep that power. We keep it as x squared and as x because we're not multiplying anything. So because of that, it's definitely not C, and we know that A is our answer. Next, we have this graph. The number of rooftops with solar panel installations in 5 cities is shown in the graph above. If the total number of installations is 27,500, what is an appropriate label for the vertical axis of the graph? So our vertical axis is the one that goes up and down, and we see that our horizontal axis has city. So we want to know how should we label the vertical axis with numbers 0 through 9. So if we are told that the total number of installations is 27,500, we need to know how we should label that. All of our installations here added up will give us 27,500. So if we're looking at our numbers, we can kind of take a guess as to what this may show. If we look at our answer choices, we have number of installations in tens. Well, if these are all in tens, that would mean this is 90, this is 50, this is 60, this is 40, and this is 35. And if we add all of that together, we would get 275. So that's definitely not right. So we know it's not in tens. If it's in hundreds, let's add one more zero to each of these. That would give us 2,750. So that's not right because we need 27,500. If it's in thousands, then we're going to add one more zero. That would give us 27,500. That would give us 27,500, so we know that's probably our answer. And if we add one more zero, we know what that's going to look like. We'll add one more zero. That would be 275,500, which is definitely not our answer. So this is letter choice C. Another way that you could solve this is you could actually use an algebraic expression. So what you could do is you know that city A plus city B plus city C plus city D plus E equals 27,500. Well, A is 9x because we know this is either tens, hundreds, thousands, or tens of thousands. B is 5x, C is 6x, D is 4x, and E is 3.5x. And all of that is equal to 27,500. So now if we combine our like terms, we would get 27.5x equals 27,500. Divide both sides by 27.5. This is where your calculator comes in handy. And x would be equal to 1,000. So that's another way that we can find that this is in thousands because we can solve for that variable, that x, in between all of them, and all of these should be multiplied by 1,000. The average number of students per classroom at Central High School from 2000 to 2010 can be modeled by the equation y equals 0.56x plus 27.2, where x represents the number of years since 2000 and y represents the average number of students per classroom. Which of the following best describes the meaning of the number 0.56 in the equation? All right, we're looking at a span of 10 years because they tell us from 2000 to 2010 we can use this equation. So that means we're looking at between 10 years. We're showing the average number of students per classroom. So we want to know what 0.56 means. Keep in mind that typically equations are in the form y equals mx plus b, where m is the slope. And the slope is the rate of change of a function. If the slope represents the rate of change and 0.56 represents the slope, that means 0.56 is the rate of change every year that we're getting in our classrooms. So if we look at our answer choices, we know that it does not represent the total number of students at the school in 2000 because, again, this is a rate of change. It also does not represent the average number of students per classroom because, again, this is a rate of change. The average number would be when we enter 0 for x because that would be in 2000, which is the first year that we are using this model. Next is the estimated increase in the average number of students per classroom each year. This is definitely closer to our answer because we know that we're increasing by 0.56 each year because that's our rate of change across time. Then we have the estimated difference between the average number of students per classroom in 2010 and in 2000. So it's not the difference because we would need the difference over the number of years. If there are 30 students per classroom in 2010 and the average number of students in each classroom is in 2000 is 20, then we would need that difference divided by the number of years, not just that difference. So letter choice C has to be our answer here because we are representing the increase in students each year, that rate of change per year. This next question has two parts, so here's part one. The speed of a sound wave in air depends on the air temperature. The formula above shows the relationship between A, the speed of a sound wave in feet per second, and T, the air temperature in degrees Fahrenheit. Part 1. Which of the following expresses the air temperature in terms of the speed of a sound wave? Well, they just told us that A represents the speed of a sound wave in feet per second. We want to represent this expression in terms of A, meaning A should be on the right side of our equal sign. So we basically need to flip our variables. If we have A equals 1052 plus 1.08 t, we need to solve for t so that this can be in terms of A. So we'll start by subtracting 1052 from both sides. And A minus 1052 is equal to 1.08 t. And then divide both sides by 1.08. So we get t is equal to A minus 1052 over 1.08. And then we need to see which one of our answer choices looks like that. Looks like it's A, definitely not B because we have a plus, not C because we have 1052 minus A, and then D is incorrect as well because we have our 1.08 in the numerator. So our answer for part 1 is letter choice A. And part B. At which of the following air temperatures will the speed of a sound wave be closest to 1,000 feet per second? So again, that speed of a sound wave, which is our A, when is A closest to 1,000 feet per second? So for this one, we are just going to plug it in and see which one gets us closest. So let's start with A. When T equals negative 46 degrees, A at negative 46 is going to be equal to 1052 plus 1.08 times negative 46. Plug that into your calculator, and that will give you 1002.32. So that's very close. Let's see our letter choice B. So A at negative 48 is equal to the same thing, 1052 plus 1.08 times negative 48. So that's equal to 1000.16. That's even closer. So for sure, we can knock out A. Now let's check on C. A at negative 49 degrees is going to be equal to 1052 plus 1.08 times negative 49, and that gives us 999.08. So that's very close as well. We need to see which one is closer. And if we look at the difference of negative 48 to 1,000, it's 0.16, and the difference of negative 49 to 1,000, it is 0.92. So that means our negative 48 is closer. And for sure, negative 50 will not be closer because if negative 49 was further away, negative 50 will be even further. So that means our answer is letter choice B. If the function f has 5 distinct zeros, which of the following could represent the complete graph of f in the xy plane? A distinct zero is when we cross that x-axis at a specific point. So this is a 0, this is a 0, and this is a 0. So in this example, this graph has 3 zeros. So we want to see in these graphs how many distinct zeros we have. So let's start with letter choice A. We have a 0 here, a 0 here, a 0 here, and a 0 here. There are no other zeros on this graph, so this only has 4 zeros, which means A is not our answer. So B. We have a 0 here, 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 and here. Again, we only have 4 zeros, which means B is not our answer. In C, we have a 0 here, 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 and here. So that's 6 zeros. That's too many zeros. C is not our answer, so it must be D, but let's confirm. We have a 0 here, 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 and here. So that is 5 zeros, which means D is our answer. Which of the following numbers is not a solution of the inequality 3x minus 5 is greater than or equal to 4x minus 3? So here we can solve this one of two ways. We can either solve for our x and see which ones fit that inequality, or we can just plug in for x. I'll show you both ways. So if we solve for x, we have 3x minus 5 is greater than or equal to 4x minus 3. So we're going to subtract 4x from both sides, and we're going to add 5 to both sides. So we get negative x is greater than or equal to negative 3 plus 5 is 2. We need to divide both sides by negative 1. Whenever we multiply or divide by a negative number with our inequalities, we have to flip that sign. So that means x is less than or equal to negative 2. So now we need to see which ones are true. Negative 1 is less than or equal to negative 2. That is not true. So A is most likely our answer because we are finding which is not a solution, and negative 1 is greater than negative 2, not less than negative 2. But let's check the others just to confirm. Negative 2 is less than or equal to negative 2. That's true. Negative 3 is less than or equal to negative 2. That's true. And negative 5 is less than or equal to negative 2. That's also true, which means A is our answer. Now, if we were to just plug these numbers in and solve, we would get the same thing. If we take letter choice A, 3 times negative 1 minus 5 is greater than or equal to 4 times negative 1 minus 3. We can get the same answer, but we have a few more steps rather than just taking those steps at the beginning. So we can cut down on some of that work just by solving for our x right from the beginning. But we can do it this way. Negative 3 minus 5 is greater than or equal to negative 4 minus 3. Negative 8 is greater than or equal to negative 7, and that's not true. So again, we get the same result. We know that negative 1 is not true. Let's do one more just to confirm. 3 times negative 2 minus 5 is greater than or equal to 4 times negative 2 minus 3. So negative 6 minus 5 is greater than or equal to negative 8 minus 3. Negative 11 is greater than or equal to negative 11, and that is true. We'll find it's true for letter choice C and D as well. The cost of using a telephone in a hotel meeting room is 20 cents per minute. Which of the following equations represents the total cost C in dollars for hours of phone use? So our cost is 20 cents per minute, but we're looking for hours, right? So we have to figure out what our cost is in terms of hours using our answer choices as a guide for how they want our answer. So we know that it costs 2 cents per minute, which means we have 0.2 times n, right? And then there are 60 minutes in 1 hour. So if we solve for m in our expression here, divide both sides by 60, we know that m is equal to 1 over 60 hours. And we know our cost is equal to 0.2 in minutes, right, times per minute. So we want that in terms of hours, so C is going to be equal to 0.2 times what we just solved for our minutes, 1 over 60 hours, or C is equal to 0.2 hours over 60, which is our letter choice D. So we want to make sure that we convert those minutes to hours like they say, and then solve for that. The table above lists the lengths to the nearest inch of a random sample of 21 brown bullhead fish. The outlier measurement of 24 inches is an error. Of the mean, median, and range of the values listed, which will change the most if the 24-inch measurement is removed from the data? Okay, we have to compare our mean, median, and range considering our 24 in our measurements and excluding that. So let's start with our mean. The mean is the average. So the mean, considering the 24, is going to be the sum of all of our numbers divided by 21 because we sampled 21 brown bullhead fish. So when we consider that 24 is going to be 12.5. So now when we exclude the 24, make sure that we're not dividing by 21. We're dividing by 20 because now we're only counting 20 fish. So our mean when we exclude the 24 is 11.9. And we want to know which will change the most. So we see that our mean will change by 0.6. So next is the median. For our median, remember that's our middle value. So if we include our 24, then we would get for our median, just kind of working our way to the middle. This was always my favorite way to do median. You just line them up, cross one off, and we get to 12. So the median with 24 is 12. So now when we exclude 24, we're left with our two 12s in the middle. We take the average of that, which is also 12. All right, so our median doesn't change, so that can definitely be taken out because our median stays the same whether we include the 24 or we don't. So then our range is going to be our largest number minus our smallest, so our range. When we include the 24, our range is going to be 24 minus 8, or 16. And then when we exclude the 24, our range is going to be 16 minus 8, which is 8. And then the gap here is going to be 8, which means our range is what changes the most when we remove the 24-inch measurement from the data. So our range is our answer. In order to determine if treatment X is successful in improving eyesight, a research study was conducted. From a large population of people with poor eyesight, 300 participants were selected at random. Half of the participants were randomly assigned to receive treatment X, and the other half did not receive treatment X. The resulting data showed that participants who received treatment X had significantly improved eyesight as compared to those who did not receive treatment X. Based on the design and the results of the study, which of the following is an appropriate conclusion? So we need to draw a conclusion based on the information they gave us. So A says treatment X is likely to improve the eyesight of people who have poor eyesight. B says treatment X improves eyesight better than all other available treatments. Treatment X will improve the eyesight of anyone who takes it, and treatment X will cause a substantial improvement in eyesight. So there's a few things. A is most likely our answer because it doesn't take any other assumptions. B says better than all other treatments. We don't know because we didn't compare other treatments, so it can't be B. C says anyone who takes it. We only conducted this experiment with people who had poor eyesight, so we don't know if it'll improve the eyesight of anyone who takes it. And then D says cause a substantial improvement in eyesight. Again, we don't know that. We just know it caused an improvement, so it can't be D, which means A must be our answer. In the figure above, lines L and M are parallel and lines S and T are parallel. If the measure of angle 1 is 35 degrees, what is the measure of angle 2? So these are some rules of parallel lines. We can determine angle measurements if we know they're parallel and we're told at least one measurement. So if angle 1 is 35 degrees, we need to figure out the measure of angle 2. There's a couple of different ways we can do this. Some rules that we have. So one way we can do this is we can say, okay, well, because of supplemental angles, this angle on this side is going to be 180 minus 35, which is 145 degrees. This angle here is also going to be 145 degrees because they are consecutive angles. And then same for angle 2. These are consecutive angles from left to right. So that means the measure of angle 2 will be letter choice D, 145. So let's consider this graph for the next two questions. The graph above displays the total cost C in dollars of renting a boat for H hours. What does the C-intercept represent in the graph? So our C-intercept is this point right here because what would be our y-axis is our C-axis. So we need to figure out what the C-intercept represents. A, the initial cost of renting the boat, B, the total number of boats rented, C, the total number of hours the boat is rented, and D, the increase in cost to rent a boat for each hour. Well, C represents cost, which means it's not going to be B or C because B represents a number of boats rented, which is not what we're looking at, and C is the number of hours, which would actually be our H-axis or that X-axis at the bottom. So it's either going to be A or D. Since we're talking about renting boats by the hour, that initial point here at 5 is going to be our starting point for the price, which means that's the initial cost to rent the boat. We pay $5 up front, and then we have some hourly cost associated with it. So that means letter choice A will be our answer. And now our second part to this question, which of the following represents the relationship between H and C? So essentially we need to create an equation that represents this line. So if C is our starting point, we know when we think about our equations, y equals mx plus b, that y-intercept goes right here in our spot for b. So we're going to have plus 5 at the end. We're going to have some y equals mx plus 5. So we know it's not going to be letter choice A or letter choice D. Now we need to figure out what our slope is. So slope is rise over run. So if we pick our 2 points, we're going to rise 3 units and run 1. The reason why we say 1 is because the distance from here to here is 1 unit, right? It's not 4, even though there are 4 squares. It is 1 because it's 1 hour that's passed throughout those 4 squares. But these are in units of 1, so we always want to make sure we're looking at our units to determine what that slope is, because we could have really easily said 3 over 4, picked letter choice B, and that would have been incorrect. So in this case, our M is 3 over 1, or just 3. So our equation is going to be C equals 3H plus 5, which is letter choice C. Graphene, which is used in the manufacture of integrated circuits, is so thin that a sheet weighing 1 ounce can cover up to 7 football fields. If a football field has an area of approximately 1 1/3 acres, about how many acres could 48 ounces of graphene cover? So we're told that 1 ounce of graphene can cover 7 football fields. So 1 ounce of graphene is equal to 7 football fields. And 1 football field is equal to 4/3 acres. So we need to get from ounces of graphene to acres, essentially is what we want to do, and see how many acres 48 ounces of graphene covers. So if 1 ounce of graphene covers 7 football fields, then 48 ounces of graphene covers X football fields. And we need to solve for X. So we can do this by cross multiplying. So X is going to be equal to 336 football fields. Now we need to convert that into acres because we know that each football field is approximately 1 1/3 acres. So the way that we'll do that is we'll multiply this by 4/3 acres over 1 football field, right? Because every 4/3 acres is 1 football field. So multiplying 336 by 4/3 gives us 448 acres, which is approximately 450. So our answer then is letter choice C. Essentially, this is using proportions and conversion so that we can convert from ounces per football field to ounces per acre and find the total in 48 ounces. In the xy plane, if 0, 0 is a solution to the system of inequalities above, which of the following relationships between A and B must be true? So we know that 0, 0 is a solution. So if we plugged in 0, 0, we should be able to use that in order to figure out which one of these relationships must be true. And 0, 0 means y equals 0 and x equals 0. Starting with our first one, y less than negative x plus a. Well, that means 0 is less than negative 0 plus a, or 0 is less than a. And we can write that as a greater than 0. And then on the flip side, we have y is greater than x plus b, so 0 is greater than 0 plus b, and 0 is greater than b, or b is less than 0. So if a is greater than 0 and b is less than 0, then a could be a number like 2, and b could be a number like -1. 2 is greater than 0, -1 is less than 0, -1 is less than 2, or 2 is greater than -1, and the option that represents that is going to be letter choice A, because A is greater than B. We know that B is not greater than A since B is less than 0. The absolute value of A is not always going to be greater than the absolute value of B, because B can be -10 and A can be 2. And the absolute value of B would then be greater than the absolute value of A, and A is definitely not equal to the opposite of B, so our only option is letter choice A. Of the following 4 types of saving account plans, which option would yield exponential growth of the money in the account? So we want to see which growth is going to be exponential. So that growth would look something like this, where it's growing at an exponential rate. So let's look at each of these and see what type of growth they yield. So A says each successive year, 2% of the initial savings is added to the value of the account. So all that means is that whatever the initial savings is, we're adding 2% of that each year. So it's a constant amount, because if my savings is, if I represents my initial savings and T is my total, then T is going to be my current value. So let's do V plus 0.02I. That's going to be my total every year, my current value plus 2% of my initial savings. So this is not going to yield exponential growth. B, each successive year, 1.5% of the initial savings and $100 is added to the value of the account. So our total is going to be 1.5%, so 1.015 of our savings plus $100. So again, this is going to grow linearly because we're not compounding that. We're only going towards our initial savings and getting that value from the initial savings to grow the account. So C says each successive year, 1% of the current value is added to the account. Now this is going to be exponential because our total is going to be 1.01 times our current value. So then that's in year 1. In year 2, it's 1.01 times 1.01 times T. So now it's grown even more. And then we're going to keep compounding that. So because of that, it's going to grow and grow and grow and grow at an exponential rate. So this is most likely it. D says each successive year, $100 is added to the value of the account. So this is going to be our initial plus 100. So that is definitely not going to be exponential. So our answer will be letter choice C. Alma bought a laptop computer at a store that gave 20% discount off its original price. The total amount she paid to the cashier was P dollars, including an 8% sales tax on the discounted price. Which of the following represents the original price of the computer in terms of P? So we know that Alma received a 20% discount off its original price. So if we can represent that by saying our new price, so our sale price, is equal to our original price minus 20% of the original price, or our sale price is equal to 80% of the original price, right? Because if we're taking 20% off, we're only paying 80% of that value, which is 0.8. Then we're paying a sales tax on the discounted price. So our new price is going to be 0.8 times the original value, so I'll put that O, plus we have to pay an 8% sales tax. So we're going to multiply that by 1.08 because we're taking the entire thing and adding 8% of that. So this is our new value, this 0.80 times O, our original price. And then we're going to take that and add sales tax. So we're going to multiply that by 1.08 so that we can get 100% of the value plus the 8% of sales tax. So in order to find the original price, we're going to take this expression and solve for O. and then that will give us the original price. So if we divide this original expression by 1.08 and by our 0.8, then we get O by itself, and we're left with P over 0.8 times 1.08. And that becomes our final answer. So we know letter choice A is not it and letter choice B is not it. If we were looking at C and D from our first expression that we got, we might jump and say C is the answer, but that's not the case because we want to find the original price minus the discount minus the sales tax and not the sale price, which is what our P would be, which is what letter choice C gives us. So our answer must be letter choice D. The sum of three numbers is 855. One of the numbers x is 50% more than the sum of the other two numbers. What is the value of x? All right, so this is basically going to be a system of equations where we have to solve the value for specifically for x. So they tell us that the sum of three numbers is 855. So x plus y plus z is equal to 855. We also know that x is equal to 50% more than the sum of the other two numbers. So 50% more means it is the sum of the two numbers plus 50%. So 100% plus 50% is going to be 150% or 1.5. So x is equal to 1.5 times y plus z because it's equal to 50% more of the sum of our other two numbers. If we know that x is equal to 1.5 times y plus z, we can also write 1.5 as an improper fraction, 3 over 2. That's going to make this easier to solve because essentially we want to get this in terms of y and z so that we can substitute that into our equation. So x is equal to 3 over 2 times y plus z. And we can get y and z by itself by multiplying by 2/3 on both sides. So we get 2/3 x equals y plus z. And this is going to be helpful because now we can take this y plus z and replace it up here with 2/3 x because we know that 2/3 x is equal to y plus z. So x plus 2/3 x is equal to 855. 1x plus 2/3 x is going to be 1 2/3 x, or as an improper fraction, 5/3 x, because this is essentially 3 over 3x, which is 1, plus 2 over 3x gives us 5 over 3x, is equal to 855. We'll multiply both sides by 3/5, multiply both sides by the reciprocal. X is equal to 513. We just put that in our calculator and get 513, which means our answer is letter choice B. Which of the following is an equation of a circle in the xy plane with center 0, 4 and radius with endpoint 4, 3 over 5? So the equation for our circle is going to be x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. And hk is your center of your circle, and r is the radius. So if we know our center is 0, 4, that means hk is 0, 4. So h is 0 and k is 4. Just from that, we know that we can say our equation is going to look like x minus 0 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals some r squared, or x squared plus y minus 4 squared equals r squared. So because of that, we can eliminate answer choice B and answer choice D because they have y plus 4 squared, and we know it's going to be y minus 4. Now, we need to find the radius. If we look at kind of a rough sketch of this graph, we know that our center is at 0, 4, and we have a point at 4/3, 5. So our radius for our circle is here, and our circle is going to circle this type of path. So we need to use the distance formula in order to find our radius for our circle. So our distance formula is d equals the square root of x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So our x1 and y1 are our center of our circle, and x2 and y2 are our endpoint. So we can say that our distance is going to be 4/3 minus 0 squared plus 5 minus 4 squared. So solving this give us the square root of 16 over 9 plus 1, which is the square root of 25 over 9. So our distance is equal to 5 over 3, which is also our radius. So that means our radius squared will be equal to 25 over 9. And so our answer is going to be letter choice A, because that's the only letter choice that has the correct radius. The angles shown above are acute, and sine of A is equal to cosine of B. If A equals 4k minus 22 and B equals 6k minus 13, what is the value of k? Well, they're mentioning sine and cosine. So with sine and cosine, we know that sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is equal to adjacent over hypotenuse, and tangent is equal to opposite over adjacent using SOHCAHTOA. So if we were to redraw these triangles, we'd have one that looks like this with our A degrees, and then one that looks like this with our B degrees. And we know that sine A equals cosine B. So my opposite is x. Let's do my opposite is x, my adjacent is y, and my hypotenuse is z. So sine of A is equal to x over z. Well, that's also equal to the cosine of B. In this first triangle, this angle up here must be equal to B degrees because cosine of B here would be x over z. And then this is a right angle. So if that's the case here, and we have another right angle in this triangle, then this angle up here must be A degrees because the sum of our interior angles in a triangle is 180, and we just proved in our first triangle that A plus B plus 90 is going to equal 180. So this other angle up here must be A. Now we need to find the value of K. We know that A plus B is equal to 90. The sum of our interior angles in our triangle is 180, which means A plus B must equal 90 because our other angle is 90 degrees. So we're able to use that to find K because we know if A is 4K minus 22 and B is 6K minus 13, adding those two together will give us 90. So if we add our like terms, 4K and 6K is 10K, negative 22 minus 13 is negative 35 equals 90. So 10K is equal to 125, and that means K must be equal to 12.5. So our answer is letter choice C. Mr. Cole has a beaker containing n milliliters of solution to distribute to the students in his chemistry class. If he gives each student 3 milliliters of solution, he will have 5 milliliters left over. In order to give each student 4 milliliters of solution, he will need an additional 21 milliliters. How many students are in the class? All right, so this is going to be a system of equations. So let's start with this first sentence that talks about how much he has. If he gives each student 3 milliliters of solution, he will have 5 milliliters left over. So that means that the total number of milliliters N is going to be 3 milliliters per student plus the 5 that are left over. He then says, in order to give each student 4 milliliters, he will need an additional 21 milliliters of solution. So that means that N plus 21 lets him give each student 4 milliliters of solution. So now that we have our two equations that represent this statement, we can solve for S, which is the number of students in the class. We want to know how many students are in the class. So, solving systems of equations, you can do that in 3 ways. You can solve by substitution, by graphing, or by elimination. In this case, I'm going to solve by substitution just because we have this n equals over here, so that's really easy to substitute. Elimination is also a really great way to do this, but you typically want to avoid graphing because if you end up having some sort of decimal or anything, then the graph is not going to be exact and there's a lot of human error there. So I'm going to solve this using substitution. So we're going to substitute this in for our n. So 3s plus 5 plus 21 equals 4s. If we combine our like terms, we'll have 3s plus 26 equals 4s, and then we want to move our 3s over to the other side. So we'll subtract 3s from both sides, and we get 26 equals s. So we know we have 26 students in the class. And our answer is letter choice D. A grain silo is built from 2 right circular cones and a right circular cylinder, with internal measurements represented by the figure above. Of the following, which is closest to the volume of the grain silo in cubic feet? Our formula sheet does come in handy because we need a few volumes. We need the volume of our 2 cones at the top and at the bottom, and then the volume of our cylinder. So let's start with the cone. The volume of a cone is equal to 1/3 pi r squared h. And then the volume of a cylinder is equal to pi r squared h. So let's solve for our volumes, and our calculator will be necessary during this problem. So starting with our cone, our radius is equal to 5 feet, and our height is equal to 5 feet. So the volume of our cone will be equal to 1/3 pi times 5 squared times 5. So that's going to be 1/3 pi times 125. And for now, I'll just write that as 125 over 3 pi. We'll simplify later once we have all of our values. That way we can get as close as possible to our exact value. Now, our cone on top and bottom are identical, which means we're going to have 2 of these. So we need to take this volume and multiply it by 2. So that means our total volume of the cone is going to be equal to 250 over 3 pi. Then we have the volume of our cylinder. So for our cylinder, our radius is still 5 and our height now becomes 10. So the volume of our cylinder is equal to pi times 5 squared times 10. Or that is going to be 250 pi. Now, all we have to do to find our total volume is going to be adding our volume of our cones and the volume of the cylinder. So this is going to be equal to 250 over 3 pi plus 250 pi. Now we plug that into our calculator to get our approximation, and that gives us 1047.198. So our closest is going to be letter choice D, 1047.2. Katerina is a botanist studying the production of pears by 2 types of pear trees. She noticed that type A trees produced 20% more pears than type B trees did. Based on Katerina's observation, if the type A trees produce 144 pears, how many pears did the type B trees produce? All right, so they tell us that the type A trees produce 20% more pears than type B trees. So that means A is equal to our B plus 20% of our B. Or we can say our A trees are equal to 1.2 B. We know that A is equal to 144, so we can solve for B. So then we say 144 equals 1.2 B. So to solve for B, we'll divide by 1.2 on both sides. And so B is going to be equal to, you'll just plug that into your calculator, and we get 120 pears. So our answer is letter choice B. In the xy plane, the line determined by the points 2k and k32 passes through the origin. Which of the following could be the value of k? So our y value in our first point is equal to our y value in our second point. If we know this passes through the origin, we can find the slope of we can use the slope to determine the value of k. The reason why we can use the slope is because we know our slope formula is equal to y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. The 2 points they give us are not complete, but we know that the origin is on this line. So we can use that in order to solve for k. And our slopes will be equal to each other. So considering our first point, 2k, our slope is going to be k minus 0 over 2 minus 0. So that's equal to k over 2. Then if we consider our second point, k32, then our slope is equal to 32 minus 0 over k minus 0, or 32 over k. Now our slopes are equal to each other, which means we can set these two values equal to each other. So we can say k over 2 equals 32 over k. To solve this, we'll cross multiply. K squared is going to be equal to 64. Taking the square root on both sides, k equals 8. So now we know our value for k is going to be letter choice C, which is 8. Here we have a little bit of a longer problem, so we want to make sure that we're saving time in some of these easier problems that we're able to solve quickly so that we can spend some more time on this problem, reading through it and understanding it completely. A square field measures 10 meters by 10 meters. 10 students each mark off a randomly selected region of the field. Each region is square and has side lengths of 1 meter and no two regions overlap. The students count the earthworms contained in the soil to a depth of 5 centimeters beneath the ground surface in each region. The results are shown in the table below. So if we wanted to visualize this, it would look something like this. There's a square region that's 10 meters by 10 meters, and this is broken up into 100 regions. So now each of these regions is 1 meter by 1 meter. So each student is picking out a region. One student may pick this region, and 10 students total are picking regions. No two regions overlap. So it might look something like this. So for each of these regions, here are the number of earthworms that are found, regions A through J. Which of the following is a reasonable approximation of the number of earthworms to a depth of 5 centimeters beneath the ground surface in the entire field? So if we're considering the entire field, then we need to consider the total area of this field and then take the average of our number of earthworms per each region. So let's start with the average. On average, each student found how many earthworms? So we're going to add up all of these values and divide by 10. So in total, 1,471 earthworms were found. So we're going to divide that by 10 to find our average, which is 147.1. So on average, there's 147.1 earthworms, approximately 5 centimeters below the ground in the entire field. So now let's consider the total area. So the total area of our field is going to be 10 meters times 10 meters or 100 meters squared. So now to find our approximation across the entire field, we know that there's 147.1 earthworms per 1 meter squared. So how many are there per 100 meters squared? We'll cross multiply. We'll get 1,14710 is equal to x, which means there's approximately 15,000 earthworms across this entire field. So our answer is letter choice C. The incomplete table above summarizes the number of left-handed students and right-handed students by gender for the 8th grade students at Keisel Middle School. There are 5 times as many right-handed female students as there are left-handed female students, and there are 9 times as many right-handed male students as there are left-handed male students. If there is a total of 18 left-handed students and 122 right-handed students in the school, which of the following is closest to the probability that a right-handed student selected at random is female? Note, assume that none of the 8th grade students are both right-handed and left-handed. So we have to do 2 things. One, we have to understand the breakdown of our right and left-handed students. So essentially we have to fill out this table so that we can find the probability that a right-handed student selected at random is female. So let's start by finding this breakdown. So we have 4 variables essentially that we have to solve for. We have our female students left, female students right, and then we have our male students left and male students right. So they tell us there are 5 times as many right-handed female students as there are left-handed female students. So let's start with that. Our females that are right-handed is equal to 5 times the number of females that are left-handed. Then they say there are 9 times as many right-handed male students as there are left-handed male students. So we have another expression. Our male students that are right-handed is equal to 9 times the number of male students that are left-handed. Next, we know that there's a total of 18 left-handed students and 122 right-handed students. We can also see that in our chart. We know that our number of females that are right-handed plus the number of males that are right-handed is equal to 122, and our females that are left-handed plus the males that are left-handed is equal to 18. So now let's start to see if we can figure out what our total value is given this information. So we can actually start to replace some of these variables. So one, we can solve for one of our variables in this equation here. So we can say our number of male students that are left-handed is equal to 18 minus the number of female students that are left-handed. We also know that we can rewrite this first expression using our values for left-handed male and female students that we just found. So we can also say that the number of female right-handed students is equal to 5 times the number of left-handed female students. And for male right-handed students, we know that's equal to 9 times the number of male left-handed students. So all of this is equal to 122. Now we can take this value here for our male left-handed students and plug that in. So we have systems of equations here essentially that we can now just start to substitute in order to get everything in terms of the same variable and start to simplify. So this becomes 5 times FL plus 9 times 18 minus FL equals 122. And we can start to solve. So we'll distribute our 9. We get 5FL plus 162 minus 9FL equals 122. Keeping our variables on the same side, moving our 162 to the other side, we get negative 4FL equals negative 40, which means the number of female left-handed students is equal to 10. So we can start to fill in our chart here. So if we know that there's 10 female left-handed students, then there's 8 male left-handed students. We're also able to now solve for the number of right-handed students. So we know that FR is equal to 5 times FL. So FR is equal to 5 times 10 or 50. So now we can fill that in on the chart. There's 50 right-handed students that are female. 122 minus 50 will give us 72 right-handed students that are male. So now we can solve this last part of our problem, which is really what they're looking for. What is the probability that a right-handed student selected at random is female? So we know that there are 50 female right-handed students. And we know that we're selecting only from our right-handed students, which means we're going to divide this by 122. We don't need to consider the total. We want to know that a right-handed student selected at random is female. So when we do this, we get 0.40983, which is approximately 0.410 chance of getting a right-handed student that is female. So our answer is letter choice A. Now we're moving into our free response section for our test. So there won't be any answer choices. We're getting exact answers here. So we always want to make sure that we're following the rules for filling out these sections and these answer choices so that we get these problems correct, because we've also entered the answer correctly. Tickets for a school talent show cost $2 for students and $3 for adults. If Chris spends at least $11 but no more than $14 on X student tickets and one adult ticket, what is one possible value of X? All right, so they tell us that it's $2 for students and $3 for adults, which means 2 times the number of student tickets and 3 times the number of adult tickets is what we're looking at. We also know that Chris spends at least $11 but no more than $14 on X student tickets and one adult ticket. So that means S is equal to X and A is equal to 1. So now we can write 2 inequalities to represent this problem. So we know that 2x plus 3 is greater than or equal to 11 because he spends at least $11, so it's 11 or more. And 2x plus 3 is less than or equal to 14. So we're between 11 and 14. So let's solve each of these inequalities to figure out what one possible value of X is, and then you'll have a set of answers that are possible answers. On our left side, we'll subtract 3 from both sides, and we'll get 2x is greater than or equal to 8. Divide both sides by 2, and x is greater than or equal to 4. So there's at least 4 student tickets. And now let's look at our right inequality. Subtract 3 from both sides, and you get 2x is less than or equal to 11. Divide by 2, and x is less than or equal to 5.5. Something to keep in mind, we know that x is greater than or equal to 4 and less than or equal to 5.5. So we have something like this. 4 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 5.5. But we can't have half a student ticket, right? We can't do that. So our answer possibilities are only going to be 4 or 5, because we can either have 4 student tickets or 5 student tickets. So either one of these is a valid answer. The posted weight limit for a covered wooden bridge in Pennsylvania is 6,000 pounds. A delivery truck that is carrying X identical boxes, each weighing 14 pounds, will pass over the bridge. If the combined weight of the empty delivery truck and its driver is 4,500 pounds, what is the maximum possible value for X that will keep the combined weight of the truck, driver, and boxes below the bridge's posted weight limit? So we know our weight maximum is 6,000 pounds. So we have to make sure that our truck, driver, and boxes is less than that. So what is the maximum value for X, where X is the number of boxes? So we know that we're carrying X identical boxes, each weighing 14 pounds. So we're going to have 14 times each X somewhere here, because for every box we have to consider 14 pounds. And we know the weight of the empty delivery truck and its driver is 4,500 pounds. 4,500 pounds plus our 14x has to be less than or equal to 6,000. And we need to solve for x. So let's get our 14x on its own. We'll subtract 4,500 from both sides. So 14x is less than or equal to 1,500. Divide both sides by 14. And we get x is less than or equal to 107.14. So we know that we can't have 0.14 of a box. That's not a possible value, which means the maximum possible, remember that's what we're looking for here, maximum possible value for x is going to be equal to 107. That is the most number of boxes we can carry in order to keep our total weight below 6,000. We can check that by saying 4,500 plus 14 times 107 boxes and see if that is less than our 6,000. and that's equal to 5,998. So that is just under the threshold, and we know that that's the maximum number because if we add one more box, we will have to be adding 14 pounds, which puts us over 6,000. So our answer is x equals 107. So we would just write in 107 in our answer box. If the expression above is rewritten in the form ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are constants, what is the value of b? So essentially, we just have to simplify this expression. We have this 2 out front, which we'd have to multiply, distribute to all of our terms, and then combine our polynomials. So let me start by rewriting our expression. Let's start by distributing this -2 to all of our terms. We still have on our left side of our minus sign, -3x squared plus 5x minus 2. And then on our right side, we'll have -2x squared plus 4x plus 2. Now we'll just combine like terms. So -3x squared and -2x squared are like terms. 5x and 4x are like terms. And -2 and +2 are like terms. So if we combine our like terms, we're left with -5x squared plus 9x plus 0, because -2 and +2 will cancel. And if we consider this as our ax squared plus bx plus c, our b is going to be 9. So that's our answer. B equals 9. Here we have a graph titled "The Number of Portable Media Players Sold Worldwide Each Year from 2006 to 2011." According to the line graph above, the number of portable media players sold in 2008 is what fraction of the number sold in 2011? We look for how many were sold in 2008. So in 2008, 100 million were sold. And then in 2011, 160 million were sold. So we want to know what fraction of media players were sold in 2008 compared to 2011. So we'll just make a fraction out of these numbers. We'll say there was 100 million in 2008 divided by the 160 million in 2011. Simplifying these fractions, we can drop one of our zeros, divide them both by 10, and then simplify this dividing by 2. We get 5 and 8. So the fraction of media players sold in 2008 compared to 2011 is 5/8. An online store receives customer satisfaction ratings between 0 and 100 inclusive. In the first 10 ratings the store received, the average or arithmetic mean of the ratings was 75. What is the least value the store can receive for the 11th rating and still be able to have an average of at least 85 for the first 20 ratings? All right. In order to have a rating of 75 out of 10 ratings, that means that 75 is equal to some total number of ratings over 10, or that total number of ratings is 750. So now we want to move to an 85 for our rating out of 20 ratings. So if we know for our first 10, we got 750 as a score, then how many more values in the next 20 ratings would give us 85, right? So that's what we're going to put up here, 750 plus x. Let's solve for our x to know what the sum of our next 20 ratings are going to be. So we solve for x, we'll cross multiply. 20 times 85 is 1,700. Then if we subtract 750 from that, then our x, or a total number of the rest of our ratings, has to equal 950. So our 950 is our 11th rating to our 20th rating. And the highest rating that we can receive is 100. So let's think about this. We want to know what the least value the 11th rating can be. So let's think about the opposite of that. That means 12 to 20 is giving us glowing remarks. They are giving us 100s across the board. So if they give us 100s across the board, they're going to be a total of 900 as that score. So in order to find the lowest for number 11, we have to take the difference of these two scores because we need 950 in order to get that 85 rating out of 20. That means we have to do 950 minus 900 is going to equal 50, which is the lowest rating for number 11. So if 11th gives us 50 and 12 through 20 give us 100s, we will still get an 85. A dairy farmer uses a storage silo that is in the shape of a right circular cylinder above. If the volume of the silo is 72 pi cubic yards, what is the diameter of the base of the cylinder in yards? So they want us to find the diameter, and they even underlined that for us. That's really important because we know the volume of a cylinder is going to be pi r squared h, which means they're giving us the radius. And they're not looking for the radius. They want the diameter. So we know the diameter is equal to 2 times the radius. So once we find the radius, we have to multiply that by 2. So if our volume is equal to 72 pi and our height is 8 yards, we can solve for r. So 72 pi is equal to pi r squared times 8. We'll divide both sides by pi, so our pi's will cancel, and we'll divide by 8, so we get r squared is equal to 9. That means r is equal to 3 and our radius is 3. Again, 3 is not our answer. We need our diameter, so the diameter is going to be 2 times 3, or that's going to be equal to 6. This problem has 2 parts, so here's part 1. If shoppers enter a store at an average rate of r shoppers per minute and each stays in the store for an average time of t minutes, the average number of shoppers in the store, n, at any one time, is given by the formula n equals rt. The relationship is known as Little's Law. The owner of the Good Deals store estimates that during business hours, an average of 3 shoppers per minute enter the store, and that each of them stays an average of 15 minutes. The store owner uses Little's Law to estimate that there are 45 shoppers in the store at any time. Little's Law can be applied to any part of the store, such as a particular department or the checkout lines. The store owner determines that during business hours, approximately 84 shoppers per hour make a purchase, and each of these shoppers spends an average of 5 minutes in the checkout line. At any time during business hours, about how many shoppers on average are waiting in the checkout line to make a purchase at the Good Deals store? For our case, we need to consider Little's Law, which is this formula. N equals RT. R is the rate of shoppers per minute, T is minutes, and N is the average number of shoppers. So in our case, we know that there are approximately 84 shoppers per hour. So looking at the rate, we know we can apply that to our R. So R is going to be equal to 84 shoppers per hour. And we can translate that to minutes because Little's Law uses minutes for shoppers per minute. So multiply that by 1 hour over 60 minutes, and that gives us 1.4 shoppers per minute. Then we know that each shopper spends an average of 5 minutes in the checkout line. So we're considering the checkout line here. So an average, this becomes our T, is going to be 5 minutes in checkout. So now we want to know how many shoppers on average are in the checkout line. We'll use Little's Law. So N is going to be equal to RT, which in our case is going to be 1.4 times 5, or on average, there are 7 shoppers in the checkout line. So our answer is 7. And here's part 2. The owner of the Good Deals store opens a new store across town. For the new store, the owner estimates that during business hours, an average of 90 shoppers per hour enter the store, and each of them stays an average of 12 minutes. The average number of shoppers in the new store at any time is what percentage less than the average number of shoppers in the original store at any time? All right, let's start by finding that rate. So we know that on average, there's 90 shoppers per hour. So our R, which is 90 shoppers per 1 hour, we need to convert that to minutes. So 1 hour is 60 minutes. And so our R is going to end up being 1.5 shoppers per minute. We know that the average time spent is 12 minutes, so our T is 12 minutes. And then for this store, we want to know how much less the average number of shoppers in this store is than the original store. So for our original store, or our NO, we know that there are 45 shoppers in the store at any time. So to find our N for our new store, we'll use our formula, which is our rate times our time, our T. So 1.5 times 12. And so our number of shoppers for our new store is going to be equal to 18. There's an average number of 18 shoppers in the store at any time. We want to find the percent less than the average number in the original store. So what we need to do is we need to find the number that is less. So we'll start by subtracting our two values. We know that there were 45 in the original store minus the 18 in our store. So that gives us a difference of 27 shoppers at a time. Divide that by the amount for the original store because we need a percentage, and that is equal to 60%, or our answer, which is just going to be 60. So there are 60% less shoppers in the new store than there are in the old store. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and I hope you learned something. This was part 2 of my SAT review, so make sure you go back and watch part 1, which is that no calculator portion. I also have some shorts uploaded that go over single SAT problems covering both calculator and no calculator problems. So there's lots of practice on my channel. Make sure you're subscribed so that you never miss a video. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below if you want to see more videos like this or if there's any topic you want me to go over. See you next time.